The GODSON, a religious sci-fi mystery story. Written and produced by Oneil Wright. Read by AV. All rights reserved. Part 2. Lifted. See that you do not despise one of these little ones. For I tell you that their angels in heaven always see the face of my Father in heaven. Matthew 18 verse 10. New International Version. Chapter 1. Sore Thumbs. Jamai Can stood motionless in the middle of the floor of the warm, empty back room where he was jailed by his mother, his beautiful, homely Christian mom. He began sobbing sporadically, his mind now filled with forbidden thoughts. He was trying to map out his survival. For despite being 11 years old with a sharp brain and agile physique, he had lost track of time, though his intestines, which felt knotted, were constantly reminding him that the gloomy evening had long passed dinner time. And he remembered being pushed into this room around 7 o'clock this evening, and his mother threatening him, and then leaving him alone to suffer, and the bolt being fastened loudly on the other side of the door, and her footsteps receding down the passageway. So now, as he stood in fear, he anticipated the worst to happen to him soon, for he was also gradually weakened by unmeasured hunger. Added to his sad predicament was the painful fact that his mom had not returned to see him. Neither had his only sister seemed to have ventured, even quietly, to check on him, her year younger and only sibling. Also, their dad was miles away, Jamai assumed, and their only uncle had not promised to return to the house anytime soon when he left much earlier this evening. So Jamai was all too certain he was doomed to a slow death inside this moldy, barely occupied room, and he would not be able to witness his sister weeping for him. He dried his eyes with the back of his hands and stared down at the 2 hardcover books lying on the dusty floor beside his feet. At least he had them as company, as well as the insects hiding in the shadow of a metal chair, the only furniture, leaning in the V of one corner of the room. He sat on the cool floor beside the books and picked up the one closer to him, the illustrated children's Bible. He then gently placed the holy book down again, and picked up the other book titled Stories Angels Tell. He flipped its front cover open. Next he flipped to the title page. Then he flipped a couple more pages and silently read the table of contents. It was quite interesting. He then turned to the dedication page, and his eyes widened just as they landed on the words, "To Jamai, from Godpa John Wong. I hope that one day you'll meet your guardian angel before you leave planet Earth, like I did." Jamai's curiosity rose to Goliathan heights, and so he flipped the pages quickly to the introduction and began to read it in his mind. "Hi, reader. I am Angel Ginasco, the chief chronicler of Recording Angels Incorporation in the Earth branch of Second Heaven. In this very special book are significant stories of many recording angels that I am delighted to share with you through my human assistant John Wong, God's last human medium, the last prophet, to reach fallen humanity in these last days. These stories feature the heroes and villains of 2 ultra-conservative Christian communities situated in the island of Jamaica, namely Rage Avenue in East Kingston and Simple City in south-central Manchester. By reading this book, you shall learn about their geography, their people, and their shared history. To begin with, back in the year 2030, Rage Avenue and Simple City were considered the twin conscience of Jamaica by most of their collective 6,000-plus residents. And contrary to their designated names, these communities were the only 2 of their kind remaining in the Republic of Jamaica. But at the time of the publication of this book, in the year 2034, they were still stuck in the way of life and technology of the early 2020s. And each possessed a large Sacred Day church at its heart, which had the communities at its heart. Also, these communities valued Christian education, but only Simple City owned and operated both a primary and a high school. Nevertheless, these 2 communities stood, and maybe will always stand out, as sore thumbs on the filthy hands of secular Jamaica. For they had a type of reservation to modern artificial intelligence and to high technologies, and also to an attractive neoliberalism that might perpetually place these communities at odds with the various entities within the fastly developing Second World island nation. And so, to the rest of secular Jamaica, Rage Avenue and Simple City were, and might continue to be, not Jamaica's conscience, but rather Jamaica's butt cheeks. Jamai stopped reading.